Do people care about Brexit more than about yesterday's sandwich? Do people care about Brexit? My name's Mike Cashman. My satirical books can be found on Amazon. Search for View Delta or use that QR code. But the question I want to ask is, do people care about Brexit? Do they care more about it than about yesterday's sandwich? I attended a lunchtime seminar held by UK and a Changing Europe, where a survey about regret was being examined. Regret about Brexit. Now, regret is real, and all the polling indicates that if people were to have their chance now to decide that question of leaving the European Union, then there's no way that Leave would have gained a majority. Some of this is due to demographic change, but there's also a substantial percentage of regret about Brexit. It's very difficult for those who argued for Brexit to say that people are happy with the decision. In the seminar, I encountered an argument being put forward in order to minimise the impact of this regret about Brexit. The argument was not to deny the existence of regret about Brexit, which would be difficult to do given the evidence. But one of the panellists said her partner had come up with an analogy which she felt was appropriate, namely that you might regret eating that sandwich that you had yesterday, but that's a matter for yesterday. We move on, and in effect, it doesn't matter anymore. What a ridiculous analogy. The impact of that sandwich not agreeing with you may have lasted for minutes. Or, okay, maybe it was a bit worse than that. Perhaps this chlorinated chicken sandwich disagreed with you, but you ate it at lunchtime and the results were down the toilet before the end of the day. This is how we might picture the event she describes if the impact was to be more than a few minutes. That's only my attempt to, as it were, put flesh on the bones of a soundbite, if you'll pardon the pun. By the time the sandwich is yesterday's sandwich, then yes, it's perfectly true to say that there's really very little ongoing impact on you of the decision that you may regret. A sandwich selection you made yesterday. But to equate that to the impact of Brexit is ridiculous. Wouldn't a more appropriate analogy be of a bug-ridden sandwich which has now caused permanent and debilitating damage to your digestive system? Thank you, Chris Cortez, for the analogy, with doctors holding out no hope of a cure. If you're going to recognise regret over Brexit, and the way the polls are, you can hardly deny this, then don't pretend that it's all over. The person who made the comment was a lady by the name of Rachel Wolfe. It turns out that she was one of the authors of the 2019 Conservative Party manifesto. And so we see that a Tory friend's approach on Brexit is not to say that Brexit was right, not to say that it wasn't a mistake, not to say that there are no benefits following from it, but to dismiss it. It happened, it's over, everybody's forgotten, let's move on. This is a completely irresponsible approach to government. I'm not saying, of course, that Rachel Wolfe is part of the government. She's not. But it's interesting that this line of argument comes from someone close to the Conservative Party. Now, I'm going to be a little bit perverse at this point, and I'm going to choose to draw something from this ridiculous analogy. Now, I would never have trivialised a serious subject in that way. It's not my analogy. But this author of the Conservative Party manifesto, describing people who were convinced by what she wrote in that Get Brexit Done manifesto, for the people that were persuaded to vote Tory Brexit by that manifesto, believes that such a trivialising approach is appropriate for the people she was writing for. I don't consider that this is showing much respect to these voters. But is there any indication that the analogy is appropriate? What is true to say is that new events and issues come up all the time, and certainly there's some reduction in the amount of attention that people pay to even a very impactful decision such as Brexit. The seminar did make a point that Brexit is falling in the hierarchy of issues of concern to the public. Membership of the European Union, which was of such little concern to the public in 2010, rose to being the key political topic by 2016, stayed high while Brexit was being negotiated, but has now fallen back to those 2010 levels and is no longer salient in people's minds, the argument goes. So, does that mean that we should all forget about Brexit and accept the damage and seek to make the best of it because people won't be convinced that it's important enough to do anything about? History would actually suggest otherwise. That very argument about salience is its own rebuttal. The issue was very low in the hierarchy of people's concerns. This history suggests that an issue of such importance, even if it's not always high in the public consciousness, can be brought to people's attention with sufficient focus on the issues. Significant attention on the issues involved brought this question up the ladder in terms of people's attention. You may notice I didn't say focus on the facts, because much of the focus on the issues was inaccurate or misleading. But that actually is not the point. People were persuaded that this was an important question, and if they can be persuaded of this by statements such as, by leaving we can send £350 million a week extra to the NHS, Turkey is about to join the EU, the moment we leave we hold all the cards, we can make trade deals with France and Germany, then they can surely be persuaded by the facts with an effective public campaign. So, do people care more about Brexit than about yesterday's sandwich? I think it would be ridiculous to deny this. Do they care enough about Brexit? Do they care to an appropriate level about Brexit? Not everybody. And indeed, when I say about Brexit, I'm talking about the possibility of joining the EU. But the facts are there that can be put in front of people. There's been much material developed, such as the Davis downside dossier, refuting David Davis's claim that there'd be no downside to Brexit, just a considerable upside. Just recently, we have the Byline TV film examining the impact of Brexit, Brexit Betrayed, with Mike Galsworthy. I thoroughly recommend this film. It shows a number of personal stories of the impact of Brexit. Well worth taking an hour to watch. I'll put a link to it on the screen. There's a study by the Centre for Economic Policy Research, well worth reading, cepr.org. There's the European Movement have produced a report, Brexit and Business in Their Own Words, which, I quote, found that 94% of businesses said that leaving the single market and customs union has had a negative effect. More than 50% said Brexit red tape has made trading with the EU increasingly difficult. Back to the analogy, or rather the attitudes behind the analogy. We can sum this up as, forget it, it happened in the past. Dominic Raab took a similar attitude initially to Partygate, saying the police don't investigate crimes retrospectively. How else can you investigate crimes, other than the new thought crime powers deployed during the coronation, for example, to arrest people because it was claimed that they're thinking of demonstrating? As I say, the Tory attitude is, forget it, it happened in the past. And we see this in 2023. I actually wrote about this in 2020, adding a final song to my Brexit musical with Boris Val Boris and Cunnings singing a duet entitled Failure Doesn't Matter in the Past. It was evident then that they wanted to brush mistakes under the carpet, as they are still doing now. And here for you now is that very song. As ever, your comments are welcome.
Ain't it a laugh? Now how do you feel? Forget what I said on having a deal. Island command won't be obeyed, and so we can fix that east-west terrain. Virus coming close, country shutting down, but here's me in the phone box as the Clark Kent clown. Master of the con, teller of a lie, yesterday is soon gone when you blink your eye. Never mind the facts, give me your support, optimism to the max. Indeed you ought. Trading we will need a system, should have thought of that before. But we took our pledges and we took them and we pissed them up the wall. Others will shut down, that is not for us. Superman is flying to his big red bus. herd immunity, mostly old will die. Meanwhile we'll pretend to build, I don't know why. Somehow we'll be like Australia. Check how well the tale will last. Just another word for failure. Failure doesn't matter in the past. Others will shut down, that is not for us. Superman is flying to his big red bus. Herd immunity, mostly old will die. Meanwhile we'll pretend to build, I don't know why. Somehow we'll be like Australia. Check how well the tale will last. Just another word for failure. Failure doesn't matter in the past.